You wouldn't be totally incorrect in calling Freedom Fighters a B game. It came and went without a lot of fanfare. No sequel was ever made, and you'd be hard-pressed to find many people who have even heard about it. Despite most B games, however, it had enough innovative ideas to be remembered by those who played it in the early 2000s. I just so happen to be one of those people, and I'd like to try and explain to you why that is.
Go scout. Let's go! Abort, squad! Oh yeah, here we go! See what's over there. Fall back, all of you!
Writing this review, I found myself struggling to convey the positives of Freedom Fighters without making it sound like the greatest game ever. It's not Shadow of the Colossus, it's not going to blow your mind, and I probably wouldn't even consider it in my top 10 favorite video games. So why then do so many of us remember it so fondly? Well, because it's a damn good 8 out of 10 game with some really ambitious and innovative ideas that make it endearing. The premise of the game is familiar, yet interesting. What if the atom bomb was developed in the Soviet Union and not the United States? The opening explains a series of events that have led an aggressive USSR to America's doorstep. Within 2 minutes you know everything you need to about this world. It's a functional enough intro on its own, but Jesper Key does the composition. You might recognize his music from the Hitman series. It's ominous, powerful, dreadful, and sounds like something out of the Command & Conquer Red Alert series. The game then somewhat jarringly swings to the protagonist and player character, Christopher Stone. Chris and his brother are New York City plumbers on their way to a simple job when armed Soviets break into the apartment, questioning your brother on the resident's whereabouts. You're lucky enough to avoid being found, but your brother is taken into custody. You leave the apartment to a scene of chaos, as the Soviet army is attacking, firing indiscriminately on civilians. Along the way you rescue a mysterious man named Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones walks you through the game's tutorial, and he says he knows people who can help you get your brother back. You meet up with these ragtag looking folks and discover the apartment your brother was captured in belonged to Isabella Angelina, an anti-Soviet war activist. Isabella, it turns out, is the head of WAR, or Warning Against the Reds movement. This explains why the Russians wanted her so badly, and why they took your brother. You join up with WAR and begin your journey to get your brother back, repel the Soviet invaders, and fight for freedom. The game's story isn't anything special. It follows a competent 3-act structure, which is serviceable enough to keep your attention. The real reason Freedom Fighters is remembered is because of the gameplay mechanics. You see, Freedom Fighters levels are unique in that you're presented with a few locations within a specific area you need to liberate. These locations always carry the main objective of raising the American flag, but also ask you to complete a side objective or two.
There's a POW camp in the area. Release the prisoners and lead them to the sewers.
It's a bit hard to explain, and it's not a particularly deep system, but each location is connected in some way to the others. For example, you'll be presented with 3 locations in Brooklyn you need to liberate. This will be the fire station, harbor, and hotel. Each one affects the others in some way. In this case, the harbor contains a helipad that you can destroy. Destroying said helipad will remove the helicopter that attacks you in the fire station and hotel levels. You don't have to destroy it, but then the levels will be harder because you have to dodge a damn attack helicopter. You'll need C4 to do this, and occasionally C4 can be hard to come by, so you may have to go to the hotel first. That's where the Soviets are storing ammunitions. Grab the C4, then head back to the harbor to destroy the helipad. This sounds like backtracking, but it's really not, as you can enter any manhole in the game and immediately jump to any of the other locations. It saves progress as you do as well, so you can destroy the helipad, then come back and liberate the hotel area later. It's all up to you, which is awesome. You're never pigeonholed into doing any one thing. You can liberate the areas in whichever order you see fit. Maybe it's an attack helicopter, maybe it's a transportation truck that's funneling troops. This is a mechanic I unfortunately haven't seen in modern games outside of Metal Gear Solid 5, which is pretty crazy when you consider that people lost their minds over that shit. Freedom Fighters carries this central gameplay theme in the level design as well. It's again pretty simplistic, but anytime you come face to face with a sniper covering an alleyway or a turret suppressing a street, there's almost always a side route you can take to circumvent the obstacle. I feel like games today, for the most part, simply don't give you as many options when tackling a challenge.
Fall back! Let's go! Let's go! Defend here! Come on!
If you know anything about the game, you've probably also heard about the squad mechanics. To me, they're not particularly interesting, but they're fun and easy enough to use. As you progress through the game, you'll level up your charisma, and this charisma allows you to recruit more and more freedom fighters to help you out, though you'll never get more than a large squad of 12. Despite being on consoles, the game's squad controls were intelligently designed. You use 3 face buttons to order your squad to either follow you, to go off and attack in whatever direction you're pointing the camera, or to defend an area. You tap once for one soldier, or hold to order all of them. You've also might have noticed that there's no crosshair in this third-person shooter. The game uses a very generous auto-aim. Simply point somewhat in the direction of enemies, and assuming you're close enough, your character will aim at them. It sounds horrible in theory, but in practice it works quite well. I can see it turning off some players, but I think it works too well to upset most. You can also manually aim, but you can't move while doing so, and it's not particularly great when you're using a controller. Graphically, the game is serviceable enough. The style is interesting and walks a line between realistic enough for the serious tone of the game and cartoony enough to have a style and not be overly dour. I would have liked some more world building, however, as you never really feel like you're fighting for your freedom. I never got the sense that I was oppressed. The Soviets are too Saturday morning cartoon villain to be taken seriously. They're bad simply because the game needs bad guys.
Colonel Balva says that the situation will only get under control once the Phantom is found and eliminated. And if this doesn't happen soon, severe measures will be taken against any collaborators and all others helping them. What are your comments on that?
We hope to resolve this in civilized way without further collateral damage. We are here to restore stability, not disrupt it. No further questions, please. Spasibo.
We will be back after a short break. Stay with us.
Likewise, the good guys don't fare much better. Christopher Stone, the game's protagonist, has no personality. He treasures freedom, and that's literally all that's conveyed in the game. He is thrust into his role of fighting the Soviets simply because his brother was abducted, and then gives a speech halfway through the game proclaiming that we all need to fight for freedom. Why? I don't know. Freedom is an axiomatic belief that I personally hold, though the game says nothing interesting regarding such topics. Russian communism is bad because it is. American freedom is good because it is. I've seen some critics call the game propaganda because of its release window in 2003, coinciding with the Iraq and Afghanistan wars, but I never felt that the game went far enough in that direction to warrant such a critique. American exceptionalism is present, but the player is never beaten over the head with it aside from said speech. This is less Call of Duty and more Far Cry 5. It's a shame because the voice acting ranges from average to pretty good.
Now is the time for us to embrace those ideals and stand up against the weight of tyranny. We have a duty to ourselves to throw off our oppressors.
It's also the last acting role of the late Nicholas Worth. Who was Nicholas Worth? Why, he's one of the best parts of Command & Conquer Red Alert 2.
Yuri commands his forces from his ancestral home in Transylvania. He is like monster from movies, yes? I am certain he has new scheme for world domination. End this, Comrade General. Destroy castle and crush him beneath the stones.
Story gripes aside, Freedom Fighter shines, and the entire reason it's a classic is because of the location system and the squad mechanics. It's not the greatest game in the world, it's not going to blow anyone's mind, but is it worth playing in 2018? I believe so. It's a short game, about 8 hours, runs amazing on PCSX2, and you can easily find it for about $10 online. IO Interactive, the developer, was recently released from Square Enix, and somehow they retain the rights to not just Hitman, their most popular series, but also Freedom Fighters, which might mean a sequel or a reboot in the future. So if you want to know why people get excited at the thought of more Freedom Fighters, well, there are worse ways to spend your Sunday.